Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my sketchbook. Hey, last night was the start of dun, 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 Shark Week on Discovery. And I know Nat Geo or National Geographic also does Shark Fest, but yeah. So, anyways, for fun, I'm going to show you what I did last year, and then maybe we'll do a quick sort of drawing just for fun a day after the beginning of Shark Week. So last year I drew this to start off Shark Week, which is kind of like a megalodon tooth. And, well, it says, I love sharks, which is kind of a bold statement to make. Followed that up with kind of like a version of an old timey hat wearing Nanawe king shark. And after that, this is a Jack of Spades, oceanic. Well, it's not really an oceanic black tip, but maybe it's still a great white. I don't really know what my mindset was with that. Speaking of not knowing what my mindset was, so Slash's birthday, which is on July 23rd, actually kind of fell in the middle of Shark Week last year, which was, I guess it would start of the 20th. I didn't really like this very much, so my idea here was to have kind of like glasses, and then, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like this one very much, so I did a second one, which had Slash as a snake, which he's a big fan of reptiles. Here, giving a hug to a shark for his birthday, so I thought that was kind of more along the lines of what I wanted. Here we have a kitty cat with a fin attached to its back by these cool straps. Also, for the upcoming Fantastic Four, I have this idea of having each of the members a different type of shark. So there's Mr. Fantastic, who's kind of like very stretchy. The Invisible Woman is here. The Torch back here. And for clobbering time, we got this, rock-skinned version of the Thing. And then I started thinking about, well, what would make an interesting shark for Shark Week as, well, the Fantastic Four would relate to. And I kind of came up with this, which is like an ancient shark, a megalodon, but a little more metal, robotic sort of things going on with it. And I call this the Megalactus shark. So that exists from me from last year's Shark Week. Sometime a little bit before that, not long after the movie of Minecraft came out, I had this idea for this. But before I show you that with more detail, let me go back one page. So I was thinking, along the lines of Minecraft. This would be the top view of like a little baby shark. And this would be the baby megalodon shark here, being ridden by a chicken. So this is the chicken as the jockey, Minecraft style, because usually it's like a little zombie creature that rides around on the chicken. Well, then I did this, which I think is kind of fun. Here you have a megalodon, little small megalodon, being ridden by a chicken and laughing, having a good time. That is just some shark stuff that I've done in the past. Well, this time is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to open up the inkwell beside me. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to see if I can make up some kind of shark-like creature. I don't want it to be an exact shark. So if you've been here before, you know that I do these things in one take. It's done in real time. I don't really do research on this stuff, so when I'm talking about stuff, it's not always perfectly accurate, and I'm happy to admit that. These are rough ideas that I do, and well, I'm going to zoom in on this, I think. Let's go kind of to there and see if it kind of locks down. Well. Let's start off with drawing an eye. I'm using sort of the sides or back of the pen to just get a little bit of ink out at the time. And I want there to be some glowiness to this eye. So, a little bit here, and then maybe a smaller one up here. Almost like a cold, dark lens of a camera. Sharks are amazing creatures. And you might say, in the world of adaptation, rather than just looking at it as evolution, sharks really didn't have to change that much in order to survive different levels of life on the planet. So, if something happens to the surface, of course, oxygen levels change in the ocean based on what's going on in the atmosphere. You can't take all of the oxygen out of the ocean the same way as you can in the atmosphere, even though oxygen is made by a lot of plants as well, right? Anyway, let's see. I'm going to have these eyes a little bit closer together. So, not exactly what we'd expect out of a shark. This is another eye here. I'm going to do a comparable lensing of the eye as I did with the other. So since I have that as my reference right beside me, they're going to be close. Slightly shorter version up here in this glowy part. So as far as the theory of evolution goes, the strongest or the fittest is what survives, and those traits get to move down to their progeny or their own children, which I can get behind a version of that as far as that theory is concerned. That's kind of how it leans towards anyway. Now I'm giving kind of almost like a tear duct here, so this isn't really a fish. I'm going to have a snout here, I think. Again, using kind of the back end of this. And sharks have, I kind of let this, yeah. They do have a snout, and they do have a version of nostrils for breathing. No, not for breathing, for smelling. What am I saying? So they do have these. I believe they're called nares or nars. Also, through their heads, they have the, I believe they call the, and again, you'll have to look this up because I don't really remember it perfectly. It's like the ampullae of Lorenzini. I did watch a little bit of Shark Week stuff. Yeah. So, two separate kind of things. These nostrils are only for detecting scent while in the water. They don't actually connect to the lungs, which the gills do. And the ampule or ampullae of Lorenzini, which I believe are good for detecting electrical signals. So, like You and I, we run on two main sort of means of energy, I guess you could say, would be chemical reactions and electrical reactions. Um, the shark can detect electrical signals, which we actually broadcast in our throughout our bodies while we live and or move. I'm going to put a hat on this creature. So as I said, I don't really do a lot of research. I'm afraid to say. I did tune in a little bit and saw Ken Jeong as one of the Shark Week, kind of like hosts of some sort. I know, as I said, with National Geographic, they do a version of this called Shark Fest, and that's kind of neat too. But Discovery has been, actually Shark Fest has been around for a little while too. I'm gonna try drawing kind of like a version of like a trucker's hat. It's called, and usually the back end of it is kind of like a mesh, which we're not really going to get to appreciate a whole lot here because, well, really, what do you need the mesh for? And then up here would be, just room to put in your cool graphics. Let's say like, you know, uh, Jen's truck stop or uh, Ruby's Cafe if you were into that awesome show with Brent Butler. Brent Butler. Anyway, Corner Gas. Now, now that we have this not really a shark creature, we got to have some stuff that helps to identify it as a not really shark. So I'm going to try to fill it with a face full of not so symmetrical teeth. So something that I would think would be true of sharks and creatures like this that have these jaggedy teeth is there'd be no real point to having a tongue if you have teeth like this because your tongue would catch on teeth like this. So if you did have a tongue, they would have to be, in my mind anyway, um, sort of pinned back. Like they wouldn't be able to extend their tongue beyond their teeth. So that's what I'm keeping in mind for this creature, that we're not really going to see a tongue being waggled about. If that makes sense. Let's do the bottom row of teeth a little bit closer. Now, something that they try to do with Shark Week is they try to promote the concepts that these are indeed beautiful creatures and they need our help rather than human beings hunting them. We are their greatest predator, even though they'd managed to get a human every once in a while. We're not really their prey. We're not really meant to be in the oceans as we are. We spend a lot of time, human beings spend a lot of time in the water. And yes, we adapt to that sort of thing reasonably well, but we're not meant to be food for these creatures. So uh, human beings eat a lot of fish. And so they hunt a lot of fish. And that also includes sharks. So I think Shark Week has been pretty good at showing people that sharks themselves may not be just the greatest thing in the world for eating, that they actually have kind of a purpose of sorts as an apex predator to, well, not let certain populations get out of hand as well in the oceans. And without them, we're not going to be able to manage overpopulation of certain creatures, something like that, right? This reminds me of something. Um, I think there was a movie called Critters, and I don't really mean to reference some part of that, but they were furry little things, I think. But for some reason in my head now, this reminds me of that. Huh. Yeah, no, not my intention. But sometimes, your imagination is helped by seeing other things. We'll have it so that this hat is kind of ill-fitting. Sharpen a couple of the teeth here as we go. No visible tongue. Let the gums kind of do their thing a little bit here in the bottom row. Encase those teeth just a little bit, which means we'll have the bottom lip here just a little bit too. Okay. Now, do we want to have our shark-like friend? Oh, let's put in some specklies up here. Ooh, you know what? We can kind of work in a little bit of an eyebrow here underneath the brim of the hat. We'll do another one over here. So again, not actually a shark. It's a shark-like face. Ridiculous. I have an idea for tomorrow morning's drawing. I gotta get going with this. Let's have this extend just a little bit. And we'll do kind of a collar, I think, here. Almost as if we're wearing a t-shirt. A slightly elasticized collar of sorts. So it's kind of like that old-fashioned phone cord, maybe, right? So it allows it to kind of recoil a little bit, so it has a bit of that design worked into it. Almost like these are ribs in some way. So it allows it to stretch to a certain point. Oh, let's see. Now, if I were extra crafty, I would have made room for some part of the fin to show. What if we going to close out some of these things here to save me some rendering-ish time towards the end. Now, I promise you this isn't a natural way of doing your doodles. You can use a pencil if you wish. I kind of have fun drawing stuff and then seeing if I make a mistake, then revisiting it in my mind and with how I'm going to live with that. So like this snout doesn't really seem, yeah, I don't know if I like that very much, but I'm going to live with it. I'm going to work in this part of a t-shirt, which would be the sleeve. But I'm going to make use of this sleeve. And again, much like the collar, this would have sort of a ribbing to it, which would allow a better fit, maybe. Some light stitching. It's folded back in on itself so that it doesn't cause fraying. Something like that. Okay. Yeah. So tell me in the comments how you feel about sharks. Do you think that they're beautiful, wonderful creatures that need protecting, or do you think that we don't need creatures like that on the planet, that we can manage without them? I wonder about sharks. So for so long, we kind of treat them like they're a mindless predator. And in a lot of ways, they do run on instinct, I think. You know, they'll sense something and then react to it. Kind of like the way we breathe. We don't always think about breathing and then take a breath. We just do it kind of automatically. Well, I think sharks have certain things that they do automatically. I do have a feeling that they kind of think about certain things too. So they use their mouths like we do our hands to sort of feel things. Dogs are like that sometimes. They'll put something in their mouth to carry it. And I think sharks kind of do that too, which is only they have a whole head full of these things, which don't really benefit us if they're just trying to, you know, get a feel for us. You know what I mean? I don't think we're really like tasty food to them. I think they usually find out within a couple of moments, like, oh, I totally regret biting this omnivore, you know, that lives on corn chips and cake. So let's set up another sleeve over here. But the idea that I have in my head would be, and I have the pen flipped around. I do that kind of stuff automatically, weirdly enough. how I want certain details to come through. I'm going to put a graphic on this t-shirt. Mostly capital letters. Ooh, let's make an A that looks a little bit like the fin of the shark. I don't know where I would have seen this before, but I think it escapes me at the moment. What do you call that when you draw a picture of the word and you make it into the shape of whatever that thing is you're drawing? So I think I've seen like the word shark made to look like a shark. Anyway, maybe that's what I was thinking when I started this, but I had no intention of doing that. So there you go. Again, I don't know the origins of ideas, but maybe that could be it. There it says shark. And here, I want to leave room for this fin here. And let's kind of close this out so that it's kind of doing something here. Just the fin kind of off to one side. Like we are being encouraged to come hang out. How about? Okay, so let's get over to this again. Let's go with solid. How about, and then maybe off of this A. So that would be a W. Should say I'm not sponsored by Discovery. This is just something for fun. Because much like everyone else, I do watch a bit of the programming with Shark Week. You know, if I were crafty, that K there would have been able to meet up. So if I brought that up in some way, no, I don't regret that. Okay, let's let this kind of finish off a little bit, I think. Now, because I have this other fin here, it would be a pectoral fin, where it is, I think it gives us just enough room to figure out a dorsal fin. This thing, I want to make sure a bit more of that shirt. Okay. So we're not going to get the full kind of effect of that, I don't think. They're usually light bellied and dark on the back. And I believe that's almost like a camouflaging effect, so that if you are looking, like if you're in the water too, and you look down below, you're not going to notice them. And if you're looking up towards a lighter sky, you're definitely not going to notice them. Like a tiger hiding in the grass, a shark has found its way to hide from you, visually speaking. That's kind of spooky, don't you think? I suppose that's the point. You don't want to be too noticeable as a hunter. So now I'm just adding in little tiny details. Let me know that this is sort of a fabric-y material. Okay. I don't really need to go that much further than this, I don't think. Because that doesn't really look like a shark. But I could have made this part, like that smile, a lot wider. I do like those eyes for some reason. I have a bit of tissue here. It's like a fuzzy that's on the pen. Okay. What if I add another tooth or two to this? It is the trick of ruining things, isn't it? No matter. It is my sketchbook, and it is fun. All right then, folks. I think we're in the final little bit of detailing, and then we can let this go. I'm going to go a little bit darker on the very tip of this. A little bit around the head itself. Inside its mouth. I don't always pay attention to what's going on with the camera, so sometimes things might get out of focus. Do a slight bit of shade work and then some line work on our made up looking creature. Well, folks, thanks for hanging out. Let me know in the comments what you think of Shark Week, as I said. Uh, do you find some of them more fascinating than others? All right. Ciao for now.